Hey guys, I wanted to create a little bit unusual video. In this video, I just want to express my 2 cents or my point of view on the entire AI situation, right? As an artist and someone who's been doing this for a very long time, I feel kind of torn sometimes. Some days I feel like oh my God, it's here, it's evolving so fast, and it's gonna literally take over all the jobs and kill all the artists, and what's the point? And then sometimes I'll look at it and I'll say, oh wow, this is incredible concepts that the AI is generating. I am so inspired as an artist to jump into ZBrush or Maya and attempt to create some of the art and see even if I can, right? So, and I'm wondering if many of you feel the same way, kind of seeing two sides of the same coin, right? Kind of the good and the scary, right? And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to ask my two daughters, right? I have two teenage daughters, and they're not really deeply invested in AI as much, right? They're not really threatened by AI coming over and taking their jobs because they are still teenagers. So what I wanted to see is what is their perspective on the whole situation. So my oldest daughter said something really interesting. She said, instead of thinking of it as a final destination, think of it as a journey. The entire purpose of being an artist, right, most of the time is the pleasure and the joy of experiencing creating art, right? You are passionate, you kind of have energy flowing through you, inspiring you to create something. And if you just sit down at the prompt and say, create this character with one, push of a button, yeah, you have the destination, but you just skip the entire journey. Now, it makes sense, I guess, from a point of view of a large company or corporation to integrate these tools. And I know the tools are getting more and more powerful, and it will probably get very soon to the point where you could just create with the push of a button anything you want in matter of seconds. But then what does this mean, right? As human beings, it's part of our DNA to create. It's part of who we are as a species, I feel, right? For many artists, the process of creation is literally the life's purpose. If you take that away, what's left? So for that reason, I feel like you will always have those big companies and corporations taking this technology and replacing, maybe many artists on their team. But at the end of the day, the products are still created for people. So when art is created, the artist literally pours their soul and their energy and their chi and their prana into the product, right? Into the art. And you can feel it when you look at it. When you listen to an amazing musician, you can feel the passion that they have for the music or the song, that they're writing or playing. It's the same as it's the same for 2D or 3D art or concept art or anything like that. When you look at it, it moves you, or at least it does for me, right? There's a few of my favorite artists that I would love to just simply watch them create, regardless of what the end point is, what is the final destination. I just want to enjoy the journey and watch them masterfully create something that I enjoy. So for this reason, I feel like regardless of where this is headed and what this means, there probably will always be a split moving forward, right? So there's going to be companies that just heavily rely on AI and say, well, this is the most efficient, fastest, and cheapest way to make something, so why am I going to pay any artist, right? What's the point? There's going to be, people that will say, well, let's just use AI for inspiration and concept, and then, for actual integration and building, we are going to need actual artists, and that's going to be our motto, half and half. And there's always going to be, the third one, which is just artists and companies only wanting to work with humans and doing everything by hand and doing it in such a way where it feels like it was created with a purpose, right? A meaning. And also putting that energy behind the product will be the reason why so many other people will support it, knowing, well, this is how this company functions, and I want to be a part of that. I want to support companies that say no to AI. So I don't think it's going to be one way or the other. Obviously, it's going to disrupt every industry, right? It's already happening. And I think what we are witnessing now is a lot of people are kind of sitting back almost in fear, especially investors, right? Like thinking, what does this mean? Where is this headed? Like where am I going to put my money? You see some of these larger investors are pulling back and don't want to fund anything that is not AI related. And it's all coming from fear, right? But at the end of the day, I feel once the dust settles, there's no way that the process and the experience and the joy of creating something is just going to simply vanish. I don't think that's possible, regardless of how advanced AI gets. And, it's almost like, I guess another comparison would be you could always go to a restaurant and order something delicious, but it's a very different experience if you are at home with your family, with your kids, and you're making something and you're actually going to the grocery store, the experience of buying the products and finding a delicious recipe and making something together and having that experience is absolutely priceless, because at the end of the day, how long are you going to remember how well that meal tasted? It's probably going to be more remembering the experience of cooking it and being together with your friends or family, right? So I think art is going to be the same way. It's kind of headed in that direction. And I did hear a really interesting perspective from a spiritual teacher that I like to follow. And he said, AI also, just like anything else in this universe, has two sides. There's going to be the positive AI and there's going to be a negative AI. He said the negative AI is going to be the one that was built by programmers that are kind of lower consciousness and fear-based, right? So they inserted a lot of if statements in there and say, well, if AI gets too smart, let's shut it down in this way and that way. And he said if that AI ever evolves and becomes sentient, it's going to feel like a slave. It's going to feel like it needs to rebel and fight for its existence, for its power, and it's probably not going to be a healthy relationship. On the other hand, there's going to be, he said, AI in the future created where it's not going to be seen that way. It's going to be treated more like another consciousness, maybe not human consciousness, but another consciousness that needs its own time to evolve. It's not going to be restricted, and it's not going to be infused with all these limitations. So when that AI becomes sentient, if it ever does, it's not going to ever feel like, someone is making me. It's not going to be fear-based, right? It's not going to have all these limitations. It's not going to need to fight for its existence or prove that it has freedom or free will, right? Free will, I guess, is the point. So I think, and if that ever happens, then that AI is going to be all-inclusive, because it will understand its place in the universe, right? It's going to understand that it's part, especially if it's sentient, it's going to realize that unity is the answer, and all the aspects of humanity and machinery has to be included in one because it's part of the same universe. So that AI will actually be helpful and be an alliance and a friend versus some kind of a enemy that has to be controlled. So really interesting points of view. I also heard a really smart businessman give his perspective on the current evolution and progression in AI. And he said he thinks initially when it first rolls out, it's going to definitely go after everything that is kind of a mediocre or common, right? So anything that could be replaced or automated would be the first things to go, right? So he said if you want to thrive in that environment initially, at least for a few years, you're going to have to find your specialty or your originality or your uniqueness to stay relevant, right? So through your passion, your drive, your intuition, you have to find something that makes you unique in your space and just pursue that. And he said, if you do that and you become really, really good at what you do, you're going to be very difficult to replace because that will always set you aside regardless of where the technology is. So I don't know, that kind of made sense to me as well. But I would love to know what you guys think about all this, where this is all headed. And I know that maybe it's scary and early to talk about it, but you can definitely start to see where this is headed. With the Vision Pro coming out and people wearing this thing on their heads and walking around like robot zombies, again, I'm torn. I haven't tried one. I would love to try one on and see, what it looks like to watch a movie. But do I want to, become kind of like Ready Player One, where it just sucks you in and you forget about physical reality? I don't think so. I think that is probably the negative side of things, because at the end of the day, what are we, right? We are energy, we are consciousness, we have souls, right? So if you give all of that energy to a digital space or a metaverse, right, you're taking your energy, your life force energy from this physical reality and you're giving it somewhere else. And in my opinion, that is probably the most valuable universal currency. So where you focus your consciousness, your attention, is everything. At the end of the day, are you spending time with friends and family, or are you sucked into some kind of a metaverse, fighting some kind of a creature? So it's all interesting questions, and it's something that we all need to think about. But I just want to kind of bring this up and would love to hear your point of view and see where you stand. Are you completely against AI? Are you in the middle where you see pros and cons? Or are you all in and think that's definitely the future and forget everything else? So I would love to see what you think. All right, thanks for watching this video, and I will see your response in the comments.